Hey, Mr. Jakub, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for coming on to this. Really, it means a lot. And I know it's been to be honest, I just want to tell you this because when I was starting out my season three, and you were like one of the inspirations that actually kept me going because you were interviewing Agnes, and I actually got her on my show as well. And so, yeah, it just kind of went on. So, you're one of my inspirations. So, first of all, thank you so much for that. And next is just tell a little bit about yourself, like how did it all start and all that stuff. So can you please tell a little bit about yourself?
Jeffrey, first of all, hi. It's amazing to be here. Wow, you really made my day once you said that I actually inspired you with my podcast. Because my personal mission statement in life is to provide knowledge, value, and skills that empower others to make a positive change in their lives. So if I was able to do that with my podcast and with my content on LinkedIn, I'm happy that it actually worked. So thank you for that. um, to your second question, a little bit about me. So I'm 26 years old. I'm from Czech Republic. Um, People from English-speaking countries usually pronounce my name as Jacob, but my mom calls me Jakub. um, and you call me Jakub as well, so that's perfect. That's how to pronounce my name. Anyway, a little bit about my background. So um, I started my first business when I was 17, and it was a business with my friend. And what we were doing is that we were making a wine made out of rice. So it was like a budget sake. Sake is a rice wine, and it was actually alcoholic beverage. And we were 17 years old, and well, you can hear that it's not going to end well because we were underage. We were selling it to our underage classmates, so it was technically illegal. But I actually liked it because we were making something that was completely ours, and it was just fun doing something out of nothing. And I think that was the time when I decided that I want to be entrepreneur, that I want to sell stuff. So since then, we're working on many different things. Usually with a co-founder who I started my first business with. But the first real business, first real experience, something a little bit more successful, was actually with someone else. And what we did is that we started very simple business model. It was about this: you have something at home you don't need. It can be a phone, it can be a laptop, and we would just come home, we would take it, and we would sell it for you, and we would take a little commission after we sell it. And in the first month, we made $500. Second month, we made nothing. Third month, we made again nothing, or $50. And then it started to be a little bit more interesting. People started reaching out to us that, hey, can you sell my car? Hey, can you sell my house? And we started selling more expensive stuff. Um, and then I decided that I want to join and that I want to learn more about online marketing. So I started doing some money with affiliate marketing. We launched some communities on Facebook. Eventually, I was offered a position to become a CMO of PitchGround, which is a startup based in India but operating worldwide. And that was actually my only experience working for somebody else. And now what I'm focusing on is building my podcast booking agency, where I help entrepreneurs, coaches, and book authors get booked on podcasts their target audience listens to. So that's a very brief overview, Jeffrey, of my background.
Wow. I just used to wonder like what would be the full version would be. I think I just have to record a whole another season for you to tell what are things that you did, probably doing and going to do. So wow, that's an awesome one.
I'm
So you are
sorry. I'm
actually
sorry if I
yeah,
went
yeah.
on a little on the rant there. I know that as a podcast as a podcaster, I don't like when people just talk and talk and talk. But I just wanted to give my background.
It's okay. I mean, it's really weird when people actually, as another one of my podcast guests, as I also said that, if I talk a lot, if I chat each, please stop me whenever you want. I mean, like, it's a podcast. You should talk a lot. That's the major stuff, right? I mean, like, I don't know why I'm actually saying that, but it's kind of my notion towards it. So, yeah,
Right.
nevertheless. So awesome. So, what is actually this Speak On podcast all about? So, you said about booking guests and all of that, but is there anything else that you guys do other than book to target audience? Anything special like that? Anything like that?
Good question. I will quickly tell you how I got into it because it's really tied to everything about podcasting. So in February this year, in 2020, I decided that I want to create some podcast related business. So my first idea was that I will help people to start their own podcast. So I reached out to a couple hundred of people on LinkedIn, asked them, "Hey, do you want to start your podcast?" And they said, "Yeah, it all sounds good, but it sounds like a lot of work. Can't you just help me book on? Can't you just help me book on other people's podcasts that already exist, so I can tap into their audiences?" I was like, "Okay, that sounds interesting." And once I heard it multiple times, like 10, 15, 20 times from completely different people, I said, "Okay, this is a pattern. This might be a viable business opportunity." So I made a pivot, and I decided that I will start offering it as a service. So I started as a consultant, offering it for executive coaches. I got my couple of my first clients, and then I connected with Mark Colgan, who is my co-founder, and David Hensel, who is a serial entrepreneur, and our third co-founder at Speakonpodcasts. And we took it more. Well, I took it seriously before, but we created more systems about it. We hired our first employees, first booking agents, and first project manager. So right now, what we are doing is that people approach us when they want to share their message on podcast. So what we are doing here is that we are talking to audience that is interested in podcasting. So if I would be doing that first service, that I would help people to launch their podcasts, that would be actually my perfect audience, because I could actually share what it's like to launch a podcast, and then at the end of say, "Hey, if you need help, you can reach out to me." So that's what we are doing for our clients. We are connecting them with their ideal audience through podcasts.
Wow, and you actually kind of answered my second question as well. That's illegal as well, you know. So,
What is
and
illegal?
well, I don't want to exaggerate on that, but the thing is, you actually said that you started by reaching out to people, like, if you want to start their own podcast, like, you reached out and asked and all of stuff. But did you actually do it for free at first, or did you charge a lot? And what are the how did you actually, like, did you have a business model, anything like that? Only you said only after doing everything you figured it out that this is a viable business model. But before doing that, do you have anything in mind, like this would actually end up something like this?
Mhm. So what I did as a mistake in the past is that I came up with an idea, and then I tried to sell it. Right, I tried to sell it, try to find the people who will like the idea, and it didn't work. So what I did now differently is that I chose a target audience that I would enjoy working with. So it was coaches, it was consultants, people who are quite successful, but they're not running huge companies. So what I did is that I reached out to many of these people and I asked them three questions. First one was, if you would have a magic wand that would immediately solve one business issue you have in your business, what business issue would it be? Second, what have you tried so far to fix this issue? And third question, why did it fail? And I started acquiring all these data. And after I acquired around 20 or 30 different answers, I again started seeing a pattern. And there were two types of answers. First one, I need more clients, I need more leads, I need to grow my audience. Basically, I need to grow my revenue. And the second type of answer was, I need more time. So I need to know how to create systems. I need to know how to hire right people. And then once I figured out what is the problem that these people are having, then I started creating my idea. Then I started creating my solution. And I connected people who are looking for more clients, who want to grow their audience, with my passion. And my passion was podcasting. So I figured out how to solve this problem that so many people told me that they have with what I like. And then I figured out that I can do it with podcasting, and that's how it was actually born.
Awesome, 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 awesome. And this actually kind of crossed my mind when you were saying that what you guys do. Do you have any known competitors?
There are so many of them. There's because it's very this space is booming right now. There are more podcasts starting. I mean, you're the proof of that. There are more people, more marketers, more business owners aware that podcasts have amazing audiences. So more of these business owners are interested in being on podcasts, which of course creates more space for competitors. And there are big competitors out there. One of them would be, for example, Interview Connections. They're huge. I think they were one of the first ones. Then Interview Valley, Lemon Pie, and yeah, there are a lot of them. And I actually don't mind mentioning them because the space is so huge, and I wish them all the best. But at the same time, I just want to dominate. But I know that
Oh, that's
I
a
just
nice thought, actually.
I actually know that there will be a lot of space for a lot of people in this industry.
Wow, wow, wow. That's great. That's great. And this is just this one important stuff is that when podcasting is actually always considered as a networking tool, right? It's like you connect with people and maybe convert them into client and all that stuff. But why do you think people actually consider this podcasting as a networking tool? And how do you think that as a network can you actually like leverage it? Do you have any take on that?
I see this approach more and more becoming more and more popular, and I think one of the biggest influencers in this in promoting this approach is James Carberry from B2B Growth Podcast and from podcast production agency Sweetfish Media. I had the opportunity to interview him last week on Why I Podcast FM, which is my blog. And what he does is actually that on his podcast, B2B Growth, he invites VPs of marketing and CMOs, basically people in a bigger, high growth companies, and he interviews them. And that's actually the first touch point with them because people love to be interviewed. People love to be in the spotlight. It's very easy to get somebody agree on the interview, and even very hard to reach people. They will basically say, yes, of course, I want to share my story. And once you are with them once you're doing the podcast with them, first there will be a time before the recording that you can chit chat. Then during the recording, you can ask a couple of the questions that might help them to qualify them for your service. And third, after the recording, there will be time to again chit chat. But I would like to pinpoint one thing. It's it still should be about providing value to your audience, and networking should be maybe one of the side effects, or you should be genuinely interested in creating cool experiences for your guests. But I really like the idea of networking through podcasts, and a lot of start podcasters who are just starting out, they are thinking that most of their results, most of their revenue, most of their growth, business growth, will come from people who are listening to the podcast. But especially on the start, when you don't have audience, because it's very difficult to grow your podcast audience, it takes time. And the biggest opportunity you have are actually the people you interview on your podcast, your guests. So I would be a little bit more picky on who you pick on your to interview on your podcast. And if you do so, your podcast should be also at least a little bit niche down. You shouldn't be talking about everything. So if you would, it wouldn't be so appealing to these decision makers.
Yeah, like I did before. I was talking about everything, and people saying me, just talk about the important stuff, man. I'm like, yeah, probably.
But it's
And
good.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
good that you're listening to your audience. That's perfect.
yeah, of course. And yeah, I can totally agree on the fact that it should be not like a straight on sales pitch when you're actually recording your podcast, rather than actually kind of providing value to the audience. Yeah, I definitely agree with the point. So in one of your posts, you actually kind of mentioned like some of the important KPIs, when it's actually supposed to be if you're appearing as a guest on someone else's show. So what do you think are the two most important like KPIs which you think that if you're a guest, like you appearing on my show, I mean, like, obviously, my show is not that huge. Explaining that if you are like someone's on a big show, like Tim Ferriss or Joe Rogan or anyone's firm. So, what do you think is the major like KPIs that everyone should actually look after?
I think there is no generalized answer. It really depends on what is your goal on the start. Because if your goal is with the SEO in mind, that you want to leverage podcasts to actually build backlinks to your website, because most of the podcasters will link your site in episode notes, and that will create a high quality backlink, which will add to your domain authority on Google. And over time, once you get more of these backlinks, your site will be ranked better on Google. So if backlinks is your number one metric, and if that's why you're doing podcast appearances, that should be the KPI you're looking for. If there's, for example, um, if you want to measure brand awareness, which is quite difficult to measure, you can measure social media mentions. So you can install a tool like Vario or something that tracks keywords you choose. So it can be your brand name, it can be your name as a person, and when somebody mentions that keyword on social media, you will receive a notification. So let's say that you want to be more out there, you want more people to share your brand, and that's what's important for you. Then you want to see whether there is a spike after you started appearing on podcasts in these social media mentions. But the bottom line is, it's very difficult, or not difficult, but it's not that straightforward to track the effectiveness of podcast appearances, because it falls more into PR bucket. It's not a performance marketing bucket where you would know that you put $1 in, you got $3 out. It's not that simple, unfortunately. But there's way more advantages to doing podcast appearances rather than not doing them.
Yeah, exactly. And to be honest, I was actually really afraid, when I was asked as guest, this to this all relationship podcast. They actually wanted to me to talk about the relationship that I've been through. The only thing is, I didn't actually have a full-fledged relationship. I just had like a half girlfriend relationship, and which was actually kind of a really intrigued one, because in our in country we have this movie and a book called Half Girlfriend. Okay, if you ever get a chance, please read, but don't scold me after that whether it's being entirely shit or not. Don't scold me after that. But if you ever get a chance, and if you ever experience anything, you can just go on to it. But yeah, I can completely understand, like, there's no generalizing stuff. It's all based on the people's mindset and their goals, of course. Yeah, definitely.
Yes.
So you mentioned one of the strategies, to contact host or through email. Okay, and this is something that I found, like, I don't know. How do you think that is actually really great? Because around 60%, I think, in your poll, it's actually said that through email is really good. But please justify that with me. I don't, because I tried it many times with some people and didn't work at all. Maybe my pitch is wrong, or maybe my words aren't that appealing. But what are the tips that you would not give that people actually open our email actually?
I talked to a lot of podcast hosts about this, especially after I interviewed them on why I podcast.fm. And I asked them what makes a good guest pitch. What makes you say, yes, I want this guest on my podcast? And there are two main things. And the first one, which pretty much every podcaster agrees on, is relevancy. So most of these podcast guest pitch emails podcast hosts receive, um, they are not relevant for their show. So let's say that you're running recruiting show, and you get recommended some sales professional or fitness trainer, and that's happening because people just take take a list of podcasts, take email addresses of different podcasts, and they will just send the same email to everybody. They will maybe change the name of the podcast through some merge fields and the name of the podcaster, but that's it. And what it does is, first, podcasters won't reply to you because it's absolutely non-relevant for 99% of cases. And second, what is worse is that there's actually a limited amount of podcasts. And once you start doing this, and once you start sending shitty guest pitches, your reputation is actually ruined, because they will start marking your emails as spam. They will know that your name is tied to recommending not high quality guests, and you will pretty much won't have you won't be in a good position to pitch more guests on these podcasts. If you're doing it for yourself, um, same rules apply. And the second reason I mentioned is that most of these podcast guest pitch emails, are super long. They're so long. And just think about this email if I would be walking somewhere. If I'm walking from my desk to the toilet and I hear a notification, I will open the email And once I sit on the toilet, I will immediately know that I want this guest or not. Don't make me read such a long paragraphs. And I'm gonna be completely straightforward. That we were doing it as well. I was doing it as well, and it worked to some extent. But when you are reaching out to really big guests, I mean podcast hosts, they are receiving hundreds of guest pitches every month, and they need to know fast whether the guest is relevant or not. So relevancy and length. And if you're one last tip, if you're mentioning that you love the podcast, please make sure that you actually listen to the podcast, to at least some episode, because that's another thing I hear
Yeah.
from so many podcast hosts. Oh, another guy who says, I love your podcast. And when I ask him, okay, what do you like about it? I don't hear back from him. Because everybody says they love your podcast, but they know that you didn't listen to the episode. Or I listened to the recent episode with the name, and that's literally what the personalization. But what you want to do is just listen to the episode, find what is interesting about that episode, and make sure that you are somewhat similar to the guests that this podcast host usually interviews.
Wow, yeah, I guess authenticity, like you said, God, yeah, I mean, like I've done this pretty much many times. It's like, whenever you're saying that, I was like, oh my God, I was like blinking my eyes. Oh my God, I think he's mentioning me indirectly if he knows. So, so yeah, I guess that's the thing. The one of the reasons why I actually very stunned when I saw it was email. It's just I'm actually not that much of an email reader. Okay, I'm kind of a big social media guy and not that much of an email reader. But a guy actually is called John Wong. I think I'm just pronouncing his name right. So he's actually a YouTuber and he has his own podcast and he's actually doing SEO on podcasting. Probably that's his main topic. So he actually sent an email. He no actually his assistant, yeah, sent an email, like we the tagline was this, I mean, like subject line was this, we want to teach your audience about podcast SEO. The moment I saw that, I thought it was a promotional like an email, so I swiped it away. I didn't see it, and the next day I got a message on LinkedIn saying that, hey Jeffrey, I saw your podcast, it was really amazing, so I just want to feature on your podcast as a guest. Then I was really guilty. Oh my god! So someone actually wanted to be a guest on my podcast, and I just swiped that entire stuff away. So I felt really, really guilty when someone actually did that. So yeah.
I mean, you don't have to feel guilty. That's actually their job to make sure that you will read that email. If they wrote a shitty subject line, that's not on you. That's on them. And they were actually smart that they followed up on LinkedIn with you, and that's really good. Like this omnichannel approach, where you reach out on LinkedIn, then you comment, and you reach out through email, then you comment on LinkedIn, then maybe you like something on Instagram, and you just create this one-side relationship, and then at some point that fifth or sixth touch point will actually get you booked, or at least start a conversation.
Of course, mate. So yeah, I have two questions, before going on to that. The first is kind of like something that I always ask out of the books kind of thing. So is it actually morning or evening there, or night? What's the uh,
It's a 6 p.m. here in Czech Republic.
okay, awesome, 6 p.m. So who was actually the last person that you made smile today?
I love it. That's a great question. I think it would be my friend in our shared office, and we're just joking around, and I know that he was leaving with a smile, so it would be Michal, my friend.
Awesome, 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 awesome. So, okay. So, one final question I have for you is that what do you actually give as the best tip in the whole world, according to you, to a fellow podcaster in order to grow? The best tip in the whole world.
Consistency. I think just be consistent. Maybe don't look into your analytics that often, and just do it for the sake of doing it, and actually getting to know more about your guests if you are interviewing people. And yes, I would say, as almost in everything, consistency is key. So if you choose that you will do 2 podcasts per week, don't really compromise on that, because once you miss that 1 week, or once you create only one podcast per week and not two, as you actually told to yourself, said to yourself, promised to yourself, it will create more spaces for, it will create more wiggle room for these exceptions. And once you realize, before you realize, you're not making podcasts at all. So just be very mindful about consistency, not only in the podcast space, but in everything in your life that matters to you.
Awesome, 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 mate. So, in case if people want to find you, of course, you are a really famous person, but still, if people want to find you, like,
I'm
what
not.
would be, what would be like the places that they actually, kind of find you active and kind of replying to DMs and all this stuff? Where would be the place?
LinkedIn would be the best place to find me. Just send me a connection request there. It's linkedin.com/in/my name, which is Jakub Zajíček. I post there every day. That's what I did. I promised myself that I will post every day, and I haven't missed a day. On weekdays, I post about podcasts. On weekends, I post about more mindset stuff. If you want to see more behind the scenes, the best place to follow me is on Instagram. You can find me there at Jakub on camera. And I'm sharing a lot of stuff from the days, for example, when I'm working out, or about discipline, about mental toughness. I recently finished 75 hard program, which was amazing. I shared the whole thing there. And of course, if you want to appear on podcasts, maybe if you're growing your podcasts, actually attracting new audience through becoming a guest on other podcasts is one of the best ways how to grow your podcast. Just reach out to me either through LinkedIn, as I mentioned, or directly through www.speakonpodcasts.com.
Wow, wow, that's awesome, guys. So you heard it, and yeah, like I said, it's obviously easy to find him. So you can just Google him as well. You can obviously pops up and everything. So thank you so much, Jakub, for coming out to the podcast. It really, really means a lot, and you have shared really, really great insights. And thanks also for bearing with me all the through 30 minutes. It was it was an awesome journey, of course. So yeah, guys, if you guys have any questions, make sure that you can just ask him, or you can leave in the comments. I'll definitely forward it to him so that or maybe I can tag him on a LinkedIn post. Probably he will reply. So yeah, that's that's depends, but definitely he will do his best. Thanks so much, guys, for listening, and thank you so much, Jakub, for hopping onto the show.
Jeffrey, thank you very much. It was amazing experience. You are a great listener, and you know how to ask questions. I really enjoyed this interview. Thank you.
Wow, awesome, awesome, guys. Guys, I'll see you in the next podcast.